Welcome to ACC Nation, featuring sports news and special guest interviews. Here's Will Ojanen and Jim Quist.
Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ojanen. I'm Jim Quist, and we're in Richmond, Virginia. Where else?
Exactly. Where else would I be?
Not the Twin Cities.
That'll be later in the week.
Yeah. Will and his lovely wife are making the tour of the United States and just happened to be cruising through our neighborhood. So I said, hey, stop on by. Let's do a program. Let's do it in person. Let's do it from Richmond.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
And that's what we're doing, folks.
Cool. Let's talk football. Sorry we missed you last week. I unfortunately was pulled away on some personal issues that we just didn't have much to, sometimes it happens.
Yep.
Let's just put it that way.
And I was in New York, so I was out of pocket.
There we go. Yep. Just nailed it to the wall there. All right, let's talk about ACC football. Let's talk about what happened this past week. Georgia Tech with I just got to say it was, who's getting fired at North Carolina? Because Georgia Tech, came up with a nice win here, 41-34 final score.
Well, first things first, we should send our condolences to Tylee Craft, the receiver from North Carolina who passed away from cancer over the weekend. He fought a valiant fight and had been dealing with it for a couple of years and then unfortunately lost his battle. So we send our condolences to the family. It's a very, very sad story, but something's going to have to go down with North Carolina, but probably at the end of the season. I mean, you had an opportunity to win this game. All you had to do was stop a simple handoff, and you let Jamal Haynes go 68 yards for the game-winning score.
And he went.
And he definitely went. Yeah. And, Georgia Tech, they ran for 371 yards, averaging nearly 8 yards a carry. And Haynes King himself went over 100 yards in the game. He unfortunately got hurt in the game, and his status for Notre Dame this upcoming week is unknown to this point. But on the plus side of Ari Hampton, once again, he was a stud, 137 yards in the ground. But again, it's all about the defense. Just can't make a stop. This was the most rushing yards North Carolina has allowed since 2018. And guess who it was? Georgia Tech. I believe it was the last season under Paul Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, because from the numbers I saw, they ran like 70-something times for 461 yards. So I'm going to assume that was the last year of Paul Johnson.
Yeah, something's got to happen there with the Tar Heels. I don't, and you say, and you've been very diplomatic here in saying end of season. Honestly, somebody really needs to be fired now, because I just don't think you're sending a very good message to people, especially if you're recruiting. Now, look, you may have plans to say goodbye to Mac Brown, which I don't think if he's going someplace. We've talked about this. It may be on his own volition, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're recruiting, you need to show that you're serious here. And I hate to say it, but your defensive coordinator, who was let go from another team in the ACC in which they just lost, is the guy who is on the chopping block. And I just say it. I think he needs to be fired.
Yeah, I know there were quite a few Georgia Tech fans I saw on Twitter/X on Saturday who were quite excited for that ending to see, his defense get shredded, because I don't know many people who were Georgia Tech fans that had a popular opinion of him.
Yeah, don't like him very much at all. Wake Forest put up a really nice effort there at the very beginning, but Clemson is just too much to deal with. Clemson with a 49-14 final win there, and Clemson's they're doing talking. They're doing the talking on the field, and it's showing up in the most recent top 25s.
Yeah, I will say, if this game was one quarter, we'd have a major upset on our hands.
Yeah.
It was 7-0 Wake Forest at the end of the first quarter. Yeah. Problem is Clemson scored 28 in the second quarter.
Yep.
And that pretty much put it away from there. Clemson outgained Wake 566 to 233 in this game. Had a 37-16 first down edge. That's pretty much tells you dominated. So yeah, and these teams are kind of going in different directions. One's going up, one's going down. I don't think I need to tell you who's who.
Yeah. I've always said that Wake Forest has got a problem with defense, and they do. Mm-hmm. And it's you'll have a star or two come through the doors, but the overall program defensively has just not delivered the same way that they have on offense. And, there have been times that offense at Wake Forest has just been smoking. And they're not even doing that this season. So, I think they're at that low point where they're, on the upswing next season, maybe. We'll see.
Well, the offense is smoking, but not in the same way.
It's called spanking. Next game, Louisville with a 24-20 win over UVA. And the Cardinals, we always talk about this, and I'm telling you, I told my wife before this game was played, I said, you watch, Scott Stadium is a cursed place for opponents. They're going to come in here and they're going to lose this game. And it's going to be an upset. And boy, talking about close, but close only matters in horseshoes and hand grenades. So
it wasn't the Lamar Jackson season where where they almost pulled off that upset, but yeah, that was still a rough ending. Quite frankly, watching that game, I thought Virginia played like the better team in that game.
Yeah.
Like the only problem is they had a couple of fourth down conversions that kind of doomed them. They went forward on like 4th and goal from the 3. They didn't get it, and a lot of people were upset about not kicking the field goal there. I didn't have an issue with the call. It just flat out didn't work. I think a lot of it's the hindsight's 2020 thing.
Sure.
I didn't have an issue with them going for it there. I mean, at worst, you're going to pin Louisville like 97 yards away from the end zone. And it's on your defense to make a play. And then there was another, it was like 4th and 1, or it was a 4th and short from like the Louisville like 16. And again, that might have been a situation when I kicked field goal, but as we see in a 4-point game, it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. But I didn't have much of an issue with the decisions. It was just they just didn't execute really. I mean, Virginia still outgained them 449 to 408. N.T. Calandre had a decent game, threw for 279 and ran for 84. That was one of his better games probably of the season, having over 360 total yards. Malachi Fields was a beast, 9 catches, 129 yards. He also completed a 22-yard catch, which he was a quarterback in high school, so he knows how to sling the ball. For Louisville, Isaac Brown, 20 carries, 146 yards and two touchdowns. I think he was kind of the MVP to me for Louisville. I mean, he did a really good job of breaking open some big runs, and a lot of them. And I look at chunk plays as one of the big things that led to a Louisville win. I think even though the number of them were pretty similar, I think it was I think Louisville had one more, but it was like how they ended up afterwards. I think a lot of Louisville's chunk plays ended up, deep in the UVA territory where they would get a field goal or a touchdown. And that's kind of where I feel like that made a difference in the game. But, give credit to Virginia. They're playing much, much better. And I think this is the best I've seen a Virginia football team in some time.
I have one huge complaint about Virginia. Huge. Pointed this out to the person I was watching the game with. And then I pointed out the difference between Virginia and Syracuse. And people may be wondering, what are you talking about? Let me just run this by you for a second.
Okay.
the wide receiver core at Virginia has some talent. However, every time I saw them going downfield, it was like a straight run. It was there were no. It was like nobody's taking angles, nobody's juking anybody, and I saw this multiple times. Now I pointed this out to the person I was watching the game with, and then when we started watching the Syracuse game, I said, "Now watch what they do," and they were playing what I would consider professional level, receivers making their moves, work in the field, right? And I kept thinking to myself, is this a problem? Or is this one game, or is it just me seeing something and picking on it? I mean, typically I'm not going to do that. But I did notice it. And I guess it comes down to whoever is coaching the wide receivers needs to do something different, at least from that observation. That's one game. I have to go back through all the video and see if that's a consistent problem. But I just thought, wow, you're just running straight down the field. Well, as interesting a quarterback as Calandria is, he's lacking in some things. He's young, he's inexperienced, and he needs some people to be working the field more so that they are open. So it makes it easier for him to throw to them. So now, your thought?
Well, I'm kind of wondering if, like, I really didn't pay close enough attention. I would have to go back and look at it to see what you were talking about. But I think one of the things that they're missing is Charles Harris, transfer wide receiver, who's been out for a few games now. I think he missed the Coastal Carolina game, missed the BC game, and then he missed this game. And he was a big part of the offense, early on in the season. And maybe that changes when he comes back. But again, that's something I really haven't picked up on. I would have to look at a little bit closer.
Look at the video, and I invite everybody to do the same thing. Go back, look at the video of that game, and tell me if the wide receivers are actually doing what you would expect a wide receiver to do in a game, and that is to, when you're coming out off the line. Depends, of course, on the play, obviously, but if you're coming out off the line, you want to, juke your defender in a way that throws them off, breaks their ankles, so to speak. And then, going downfield, making sure that you're looking back and seeing what your quarterback is dealing with, so that, if you have to come out of position in order to help him out, that you can do it. I just look at that and see what you come up with there. Notre Dame with a none too surprising win over Stanford, 49-7. It's so funny when you have a team that's not doing well. Fans tend to be very critical of everybody, top to bottom, president, AD, coach, water boy, everybody. Yes, water boy. You have to watch out for that water boy.
You get ejected for targeting nowadays.
That's right. But granted, Stanford does need to do some things with their football program, but I think they are. I think there's some things that are going on there, and maybe there will be some changes. Who knows? But 49-7. I'm not surprised. I don't think anybody ought to be surprised by that final outcome.
No, and I am a believer in Coach Taylor. They just don't have the horses. I mean, they have one that I would really consider one, in Alec Aomanar, and he only had 3 catches for 16 yards in this game. I mean, they until you can until somebody else steps up, he's going to be the offense, and it's going to be really hard. I know Ashton Daniels he's a younger kid and he's still learning, and people like him, but he's been a bit inconsistent, to be honest with you. I mean, as a team, they only had 200 yards of offense in this game. So it's not like
it's tough.
Yeah, it's hard. And I know Notre Dame is still pretty good, but yeah, you got to do better than that.
Yeah, I think they will. I hold a lot of promise there for Stanford, and I think their fans ought to as well. It's coming. Who knows when? I mean, I'm sure that people have talked about that for years, but you're in a different conference and there's different expectations. And so far, Stanford and Cal and SMU have all performed mightily in other sports. And Cal and SMU have done far better than I would have expected in football. And it's I'm excited for these teams to be in the ACC. I think Stanford will come along football wise, but man, if you're disappointed by that, go watch their soccer team in any other sport, because man, they are smoking it on the field on all those Olympic sports by far. So now Pitt and Cal. Speaking of those former Pac-12 teams, or Pac-2, Pitt really it took a little extra to knock off Cal, and I know Cal, the fans were disappointed, but gosh, they have come a long way this season.
Yeah, it's funny, we talk about how this offense has transformed the program really this year. And this week, Pitt won with defense. 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and 2 turnovers. That looked more like classic Pitt of, a few years, last, handful of years under Pat Narduzzi. Mm-hmm. Des Reed was the Pitt offense in this game. He had over 120 yards or 102 touchdowns, but one of those was a 72-yard run. But the thing of it is, Pitt only had 277 total yards in this game, which, doing the math, tells me 26% of their yards came on that one play. Cal did not have Jade Knott in this game, so they did not have OTTTOGO in this game. And I feel like if he would have been healthy, Cal would have won that game, because they would have taken a lot of pressure off of Fernando Mendoza. And he was fine in his all right, but I feel like the lack of a running game was a big difference too, in addition to the Pitt defense having a field day.
Defense saved Pittsburgh in this game, and kudos to Cal, and also kudos to the Pitt offense that did step up. That was a solid game, and I don't think anybody ought to walk away with that going, oh man, we got screwed on that game. You didn't, but I mean, it's disappointing to lose like that, like any game, right? But this says so much for Cal and what their future holds. It's exciting to see this, and they're going to break loose. This team, somewhere in the next couple of games, is going to break loose on somebody, because they're really close to it now. And it's going to be interesting. We'll find out who's going to get blasted here before long. Syracuse 24-17 over NC State. Now, I'll tell you something. I said earlier that I thought that somebody ought to be fired at UNC. I'm getting to the point where I think somebody ought to be fired at NC State.
It's an interesting situation down there in Raleigh. I feel like there's been kind of a disconnect this season between the fans and Coach Doran. He's been calling them out for, I don't know why. There's no reason. They've been very supportive of him and his program. It's, the on-field product has not been great. I mean, let's put it this way. Syracuse had 24 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
21 of them came off of 3 NC State turnovers. Math tells me that That's why they won the game. And you cannot turn the ball over 3 times and give up 21 points and expect to win a ball game, and especially a game that was decided that close. Now, good on Kyle McCord, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jackson Meeks, 11 catches, 116 yards. CJ Bailey did have probably the best game of his career. He threw for 329 yards and 2 touchdowns. But again, I'm just going to harp on it. Turnovers. You gotta fix that. And the defense, I didn't think was that bad, to be honest with you. It goes back to not making the critical stops when they need to, and the offense, the run game, which I thought was going to be really good this year, just hasn't gotten going.
It's not there.
It's not there.
I will say something for Syracuse in this. I mean, I think you've pointed out the Pac. Probably one of the biggest disappointments, I think, in the conference this season.
Yeah.
From what everybody expected. Syracuse, a pleasant surprise, because we've all seen Syracuse over the last numerous coaches and their struggles, and it's been kind of half-assed, to be honest with you, and we bring in a new coach, a new mindset. This team looks like somebody who's ready to compete, and they are, and they're going out and they're playing. This is one season. This is the first season under this new coach. They've got some talented people on that team, and he's bringing out the best in them. Imagine what it's going to be like if he continues to have this sort of success, what the recruitment's going to be like and what he's going to be able to put on the field.
And I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but if you're going to have that kind of success at Syracuse, what are the odds you are likely going to get poached by another school?
It's possible, yes. And that's where Syracuse needs to go. We're either in this or we're not.
Or as, you got to show the money. Show me the money.
Right. That's right. You're either serious about it or you're not. And I'll just say that, anybody that's in FBS ball these days, if you're not serious about it and you don't want to win and you don't want to invest, get the hell out, because that's not the game any longer. It's not what it's about. Just shut down your program and do something else, because being half-assed about something in anything is unacceptable. And this is, I hate to say this is no longer just sports. Sports is fun. Sports is, let's go out and have a good time, guys. Yeah, it's a damn business. It's a business. Coaches get paid big money. Schools get paid big money, and now players are getting paid big money. If you can't see that this is a business and play like it's a business and operate like it's a business, get the hell out. All right. How about that?
Yeah.
Some firsthand.
I don't know. For some reason, I'm looking at you and you keep saying big whammies. I'm expecting the board to go around and figuring there might be a whammy up there somewhere.
There is a whammy. Just wait. All right, let's take a quick look at what's going on with the polls here before we get into next week's action, and we'll also take a look at the preseason men's basketball top 25, which quite honestly, I in responding to one of our buddies talking about how there's only 2 ACC teams in this poll. I said, let's play 5 games and then we'll crumple this paper up and throw it in file 13 where it belongs. Because quite honestly, I think this preseason men's top 25 basketball poll is full of crap. But hey, what do I know? So let's take a look at the coaches poll first. Basically, the coaches in AP are basically the same. Texas at number 1, Oregon at 2, Penn State 3. The coaches say that Georgia is number 4. Meanwhile, Ohio State is number 4 over on the AP, and they just flip-flop for number 5. Whoopity-doo-dah-day. Now, both of them, this is why I think these polls are kind of useless to some degree. Miami is number 6 in both. Now, what are the odds that teams are that closely in the polls? I mean, is somebody waiting, or are they looking at early, or what? I just think it's nonsense. Clemson's number 9, and the coaches, they're number 10 in the AP. Notre Dame, and I always include Notre Dame because it is the ACC +1. And everybody wants to complain about that. I continue to do it because I like to just goad you. Notre Dame is number 11. That's right. Poke in the eye. And number 12 in the AP. Then Pitt comes in at number 20 in both polls. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
SMU is 23 in the coaches poll and 21 in the AP. Now, when it comes down to those receiving votes teams, in the coaches poll, Syracuse 31, Louisville 38. In the AP, it's 33 for Syracuse and Louisville for 36. So we know there's some homers out there somewhere who are voting for their teams. Though I can't say I fault them for voting for Syracuse and or Louisville, considering some of the other teams that are on these polls. That why?
I don't even know which schools you're talking about, but I'm just going to assume it's SEC bias.
Yeah, we can get into that. Yeah, I think a lot of people are beginning to see that very clearly for what it is, and it's gotten to a point where the polls are not worth anything. I mean, and if you treat them as nothing more than a promotional tool, and they're easily influenced, then they become crap. And I hate to say it, but I don't even really like to look at either one of these anymore, because it's like I know I'm just going to see something that's like, who in the hell came up with that? All right, let's take a look real quickly at before we get into next week's football, let's go ahead and take a look at basketball. Well, because I know you're chomping at the bit. You know, not only did the AP preseason men's top 25 come out, but Ken Palm is also out. And there's a lot of people bitching and moaning about Ken Palm, too. Me being one of them, for a variety of reasons. And you brought up some other polls that are worth taking a look at.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at the Ken Palm one, because I've got that up in front of me here. Just looking at the ACC, Duke is the top team in the ACC, ranked second overall, which I know this is Ken Palm's algorithm metric. It just seems way too high for me, especially when North Carolina is down at number 14.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's too significant of a gap between the two teams to me, and there's always that worry with me with Duke is you're bringing in a load of freshmen, and I know Cooper Flagg's been so highly touted, but it's another level. You know, I'm sure he's going to be fine in his 1 year at Duke, but what about the rest of the team? You gotta, you know, they have to play like a team.
Yeah,
I gotta see.
We've seen that problem before there.
Like I say, number 14 is North Carolina. Clemson's third in the ACC at 24. Again, seems a bit high for me. Pitt at number 4 in the ACC, 38th overall. I think that's pretty fair. You're talking about where Jeff Capel's taken this program really the last 2 to 3 years. And I know I was one of those people who didn't think he was going to last much longer. And then all of a sudden he's really turned this program around and 100% deserved the contract extension he got. Wake Forest is behind them at 44. Again, a team I think is going to be able to score pretty much at will this season. It's just going to be a question of whether or not they can defend. We saw what Hunter Salisman for this team last season, and he's going to be, among the best players in the league again this year. Right behind him is NC State, which I think is still a bit high. I think a lot of this is just the high of going to the Final Four last year.
It's hype,
and it always happens.
Yeah,
and I just feel like this is I feel like they did get a couple nice pieces. I mean, they got a guy or two from Louisville, which abandoning that S show was the right move. Right behind them, Miami at 55, a team I feel again is a bit too high for my taste. But is. And then right behind them, you have Louisville, who's honestly, I thought they'd be a little bit higher because you have a competent coach now, and they brought in some talent. But again, it goes back to this is almost a completely new team. You've got
what is what people are looking at. Yeah. So,
and then you've got Syracuse at 68, Notre Dame 69, Georgia Tech 70, and especially with Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, I like those teams this year. They're definitely on the programs on the rise. I love Notre Dame's backcourt, Shrewsbury, and the other kid, his name escapes me at this exact second, but they have a really nice backcourt. In Georgia Tech, I like the front court, so it's kind of the opposite. SMU at 74 was interesting to me. First year in the new league. See how they adjust to a different level of basketball. And then Virginia at 78 is, and you and I were talking about this morning over coffee. We're like, I feel like Virginia's variance is wider than anybody else in the ACC because I think they could finish 10th in the league, but if they get their act together offensively, they could be third in the league.
Right.
I think it's just a matter of how all these new pieces gel together. And Antonio Trust, I think he's still one of the best coaches in college basketball. It's just, again, when we last left them, that offense couldn't do anything I wouldn't have trusted that offense with my life. And then Ryan Down goes out in the preseason game on Sunday night and hits 6 threes. So it makes you wonder. And then rounding it out, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Stanford, Boston College, and Cal, excuse me. So but I know BC and Cal are going to struggle a bit this year. BC lost a lot of talent from the portal, and I think Earl Grant's a good coach. They weren't able to replenish the stock really to get what he needs. And in Cal, they've been a mess for a little bit, and I think they're a program on the up, but it's still going to take some time.
Yep.
And I'm kind of, going back to Virginia Tech, I'm surprised they're that low, but I also wonder if, again, this is a situation where Mike Young, might have already reached his peak and it's starting to come down a little bit.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. That one I haven't heard yet, but that's until just now. We'll have to keep an eye on that. It's sort of like this AP preseason men's top 25, and so the top 5 teams. We got Kansas. Who did I write down there? Alabama.
Yeah.
God. UConn, Houston, Iowa State. And then Duke at 7, North Carolina at 9. That's it for the ACC, except for receiving votes. They've got Wake Forest at 30, Miami at 38, Clemson 41, Louisville at 47. Give me 5 games before we start seriously talking about how teams are. I mean, I think you're going to see probably more variance in basketball polls this season than perhaps football. You know how baseball is, how it's like literally day to day, it's just constantly flexing, and team loses 1 out of 3. Sometimes they'll drop several notches, and et cetera, depending on who they're playing, obviously. But I just think you've got a ton of talent. NIL money is going to make a big impression this season. So I think that if if you're seriously looking at last year and saying these teams ought to be where they are, and you're really confident about that, it's a fool's errand. Like I said, give it 5 games. Let's see how they actually play. If they play together. I was pointing out with Duke. Because, if they start out rough, it's going to be a rough ride for everybody. Or if they come out of the gate, smoking it up, then maybe you'll have a wholly different impression about them. Of course, we've seen teams that do that in every sport. They'll come out of the gate just hot, and next thing you know, they're sinking. You think you have this really stellar team in place, and then they sink. So it's going to be a little while before we get to see the women's preseason top 25, but I would imagine that South Carolina will be number 1.
And there will be several ACC teams in it.
Yeah, there should be, more than 2.
Yeah, you figure Notre Dame's got to be in there. I'm sure NC State's going to be there.
Yeah.
Stanford should be in there.
Yeah.
Who else would be in there that I'm missing?
Well, let's see here. Let's go down the line here for a moment. I'll tell you teams that probably should be in it but won't be. I think Syracuse and Virginia are 2 teams that you better keep an eye on. Louisville will be in there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Tech ought to be in there.
Maybe in the back part, but I'm just kind of curious how, with the new coach and some of their key players gone, how they're going to rebound from that.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of an adjustment period, but my I always talk about Duke women's basketball.
They have a real shot too. I didn't even think about that.
Keep your eye on them.
If anything, they might be in the receiving votes category.
Miami may very well be in there. Georgia Tech, I could see probably being in there. I
think that
might be about it. Yeah. At least at this point, so it's a good thing that we're not putting together. But anyway, I think those teams, at the very least, you point out some of them are going to be receiving votes. Yeah. I can see it starting that way, and where it goes from there, anybody's guess. So anyway, let's get back over to football. See what's coming up this week, because we've got some interesting games. Boston College is going to be at Virginia Tech. What do you think of that mix?
Thursday night, Lane Stadium. The place should be hopping, right?
Should be.
I will be. Yeah. I have no doubts. Fine. As far as the game, though, I'm kind of curious, with this game, because Virginia Tech in front of me here, that they have them a 7-point favorite, which quite honestly feels a bit high to me. Like if I was to put some shekels down, I'd probably take BC to cover. Honestly, I think the thing with it is both of these teams run the ball well, but BC does a better job of stopping the run by a considerable margin. They're much better at stopping the run. It's then it depends on who could throw the ball. Can Kyron Jones throw the ball? And that might be the big difference in the game.
So my big question out of this is that, do you carry shekels around?
No comment.
Okay. Next up is FSU and Duke. This might be an entertaining game, and there's been some talk about from fans saying, well, we don't want to take any of Duke's turf. That would be beneath us to take some of their. And I'm thinking, well, you're getting a little ahead of yourself there. You might not win the game.
It really says something when a 5-1 Duke team hosting Florida State is only a 3.5-point favorite, a 1-5 Florida State team. It just shows just how little respect Duke is getting because of the soft schedule. But I don't know if I would trust Florida State at this point. You mean maybe Brock Glenn plays a little bit better this week, but I guess again I'm laying money out. I'd probably take Duke to cover.
Wake Forest at UConn. Okay.
Yeah. The funny thing is UConn's a 1.5 favorite in that game.
Now, that doesn't surprise me because Wake Forest has really been stinking it up, and UConn has been playing a little more aggressive ball lately.
Yeah.
So it could be, it is at UConn, so there is that home field advantage. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, I think this is a real tough game to figure out, though, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, I would not put money on this game, honestly, but
yeah. No shekels.
No shekels.
Virginia at Clemson, that's another game we would not put any money on unless you wanted to put it on the home team. But you never know.
Yeah, they're 21.5 point favorite as of recording. That tells you just where things are. And, I kind of wonder, this is just a next level thought by me, knowing Tony Elliott was once on Dabo Swinney's staff.
Yeah.
Could he take it easy on them? I think they would be good. They're good enough to easily cover that spread, win by 30, 40 if they really want to. But I wonder if they're just because there's a respect factor because of, like I said, Tony Elliott was on Dabo's staff, that he might take it a little easy on him, especially like in the second half. I think because I honestly don't expect much from Virginia in this game, but Clemson's definitely winning.
Dabo taking it easy on Tony. Nah. I don't see it. But you're a nice guy, aren't you?
That depends.
Next game. I'm going to tell you right now, if I were NC State, I'd be sweating some bullets because you're heading out west to play Cal. And the way you've been playing lately and the way Cal's been playing lately, who's the favorite here?
Cal's a 10.5 point favorite according to this. Yeah, both teams 0-3 in the ACC, but even still, the Wolfpack are a 10.5 point underdog. But I think I'm just kind of curious if Jade Knott plays in this game. I'm not sure, if he's going to play again. I think Cal wins easily, but if he doesn't, I think this is going to be a much closer game.
Yeah. Well, Notre Dame at Georgia Tech. Now, here's the upset of the week pick for me.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, if Haynes King plays, I think there's some real potential there. Notre Dame currently an 11-point favorite, but this game down at Bobby Dodd in Atlanta, I think you can, if King plays, I think you can count on them potentially cover the spread.
Yeah, I home field advantage, and Georgia Tech certainly is not a team to be trifled with, and Notre Dame is certainly not the Notre Dame that we've seen in over the last couple of years. Of just their program has diminished, and Irish fans are screaming and calling me all kinds of names right now. That's not nice. Sister Mary Joseph would be giving you grief right now for what you just called me.
We'll say a rosary for you.
Yes, you should. Rub them. Yeah, I don't. The Irish haven't given me that much to really consider them as being. Look, they're number 11 and number 12 in the top 25. I'm not totally buying that. I think they ought to be much lower down the list, but I think Georgia Tech has a shot. I really do.
And yeah, Notre Dame's defense is pretty good. That's the thing that kind of concerns me. But yeah, like if they could get this, I love the home field advantage for Georgia Tech in this game. Like if they're going to have a shot at pulling off that, they're going to need that home crowd.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key. They're going to have to pack that stadium full of Georgia Tech fans, because I can tell you right now, not only do Irish travel well, but pretty much anywhere you go, you will find tons of Irish fans. And so they're going to be lined up trying to get into that stadium, and they will be loud. Our last game is SMU at Stanford. I don't think there's any question here that SMU will pull another conference win. SMU has done fairly well for themselves this season. Impressive.
Yeah, 5-1, currently 2-0 in the ACC. And really, everything changed with the quarterback change to Jennings, and he's been a breath of fresh air for that offense with Braden Smith running the ball the way he has. They're 14.5-point favorite in this game, and I don't see why they don't cover in this game.
All right. All kinds of other stuff that's going on in the ACC. Lots of exciting action going on in other sports. Man, you look at all the polls, all the Olympic sports, ACC is being extremely dominant. And, man, some of the battles that are going on right now. I knew that when Stanford came in, the Stanford was really there's been some awesome games in different sports that it's just made it so much more competitive. It's going to be the same thing in women's basketball, which is coming up soon. And again, I can't say enough good things about adding these 3 teams. I know that it certainly didn't go over well with everybody, and everybody's been kind of like, but I like it. Yeah. I absolutely like it a lot, and I think it's added something special. And this whole thing with Calgorithm and everything has been just absolutely spectacular stuff.
It's been hilarious.
The fact that they also have been putting up billboards in all the in Charlotte and Tallahassee and Atlanta, and it just kills me. I mean, I love it, and loads of respect to the people that are Cal fans.
They've been phenomenal.
Great stuff.
Been the best part of Cal so far. Hey, I just want to say before we go, just want to thank you and your wife Jill for your hospitality the last couple of days here in Richmond.
I haven't sent you the bill yet.
Yeah, we're about to. My wife and I are about to wrap up our long vacation here in a couple of days. Start heading back to Minnesota here Wednesday. So it's been a long vacation. It's coming to an end, but we're ready to take the something like 18-hour drive from. We're going to be heading to Charlottesville on Tuesday, so we're going to be leaving Charlottesville Wednesday morning back to the Twin Cities. So again, thank you and Jill for your hospitality the last couple of days. Really appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure. It's we always look forward to you two coming down and visiting with us. It's always fun. Didn't get to spend nearly as much time. We did go out and get a beer together. So
yes, we did.
That was a
great lunch at a brewery here just outside of Richmond.
Yeah. I will give them a plug. Hidden Wit. Great place to go. Out in the middle of nowhere, but neat facility, good beer. And it's difficult for brewers to across the board produce that quality of beer. The food, very good too. Lots of it. So anyway, nice environment to go to. So thank you folks for that. And I will say that for my wife and I, we enjoyed having you, and you're welcome anytime, man. Excellent. So always good to see you. So until next week, when we've got different backgrounds and different places, cheers.
School.
Thanks for listening to ACC Nation. Be sure to listen, like and subscribe to our podcast, radio, and YouTube channels by visiting accnation.net. Follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, Mastodon, Threads, Blue Sky and Reddit at ACC Nation.
ACC Nation.